Wow,
Wow, Nick, we're in the same room.
making history today. First ever KP Unpacked in live in-person event.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We're not really set up for this. We're used to only seeing each other through Zoom calls.
Hopefully, it's like a little awkward to face you because we're sitting a little close.
Probably very awkward.
My coffee breath might be a little much for the small room.
But I think this is a preempt to what in a couple of weeks we're going to do a KP Unpacked live,
like actually
live studio audience.
Yeah, I guess everyone seeing this and listening will hear the recorded version. This is being recorded, but yeah, there will be an in-person event now that I'm in San Francisco.
So why are you here? Why are you in San Francisco?
We're hanging out. Okay. Brought the family for a month. You know, reasons to be here if you work in the venture and tech world. I've heard.
There's a lot happening.
So yeah, I got the bug to come out here and spend some time, and some, you know, if you listen to our conversations around the house, like we might be testing out a, you know, potential living situation here.
Yeah, it's a little bit cooler probably than Kentucky.
It's like 50 degrees cooler currently. Yeah, we checked the weather out the other night. Feels like 46 was the temperature in Coal Valley.
Yeah.
Foggy, cold, but we came from 105 degrees last week in Kentucky. I mean, we were right in the middle of the heat wave like everyone, and was a reprieve. Was very nice.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we enjoy here, right? Like we're down on the coast and like 400 yards from the ocean, and
it's not bad.
You have to kind of wear a sweater some days during the summer. It's not the worst thing in the world. So I just spent a week in Atlanta. That was like 1,000 degrees in high humidity. So, but it's been.
Do you have any new perspective on Atlanta when you go back to visit?
Yeah, I think there's two things that are happening with me. One, in living in Half Moon Bay, my commute to my office in Half Moon Bay is like 3.5 minutes.
Yeah,
I've become very much country mouse.
Yeah,
like
I feel that way in Kentucky for what it's worth.
Yeah,
that's
commuting into Atlanta.
Commute, but yeah,
I was like the traffic.
Yeah.
And the big buildings and the parking deck.
Yeah.
And like, this is such a pain. Like, how do people live here? I only lived there for 53 years, but it definitely, you get stuck in your routines and you get comfortable. And, you know, here I get up at 4 a.m. and, you know, the rest of the world has already started, right? I start getting my news in. And
do you wake up at 4 because you feel behind? You wake up later?
It's a bizarre thing. So, I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's with the startup, with Zero RFI, or just AI, or whatever's going on. I just wake up every morning with like massive enthusiasm and FOMO.
Yeah. Like
ready to take on the day, ready to take on the world. Devin actually asked me this one. He's like, you just seem like you're getting up earlier and earlier.
Like, I can't get up much earlier than you are now.
He was like, were you up at 3? I was like, maybe, you know, like maybe I was. He's like, what are you doing up at 3? And I'm like, I was just excited. Like I have a big day, a lot going on in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited to go be part of it. And he's like, I guess that's, you know, because, you know, the whole worry is like, are you getting enough sleep and all that? I was like, I was in bed at 8 last night. I go to bed early, you know, so.
Yeah. It's interesting that you kind of kept you're almost like on your Eastern cadence.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've thought a little bit about it. I mean, we're 3 hours ahead in Kentucky. We're on Eastern time. And since coming here, you know, we're here for a month. So we were like, all right, we're not going to do the delayed, like, let's stay on the old time zone thing. Let's get acquainted to Pacific time. Let's get the kids in bed at like normal hours. And so, still working through the kinks of that, but I mean, like it's interesting that to me that you've kept more or less the exact same sleep pattern here. I mean, you're more than a year in at this point.
Yeah, almost
like,
a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild too.
Like I wonder if there's a biological element to that.
It could be, but I mean, honestly, I'm also enjoying my afternoons, right? If you think about, you know, we have a board member in Dubai, so I check in with him every so often. The world starts on Eastern time zone.
Yep.
And then honestly, around 3 o'clock over here, it gets quiet.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, right? It kind of gets quiet. I go get a coffee, I go for a drive, I'm still available, but it's kind of nice having those like afternoon.
Yeah, nice.
But what's kind of funny is when my 4-year-old hears me up at 5 a.m. and he comes down, and he's like, "Make me eggs, make me bread." I was like, "It's 5 o'clock. Go back to bed."
You're not. Yeah,
it's not actual time.
I need a couple more hours before you get up.
So speaking of, we haven't really talked about topic, but we can't. Whether you want to or not, you don't get to ignore Alex Karp.
Yeah, your guy. I got a text message from you last week that said, "I might love Alex Karp. I'm not exaggerating when I say the word love. I have a man crush on him."
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about Alex Karp.
I think his what's interesting is I get up every morning. I have CNBC on, which, by the way, I don't know what happened with CNBC. I think after they spun out to Versant and aren't part of the big NBC machine anymore, they've gotten a lot better.
Interesting.
They have a show that comes on at like 5 a.m.
Yep.
Like pre-market stuff. And they're just like digging in. They're having better guests. They're doing some longer form interviews. Like all the interviews are 7 minutes.
I've noticed that. I think so. On CNBC, I think they've really leaned into their advantage, which is we have great interviewers.
Yeah.
Like world-class interviewers.
Yeah,
Andrew
Ross
Sorkin.
Sorkin's amazing.
And, even, and so you have like Joe Kay, and a lot of these guys have been doing this forever. These guys, they're truly world-class interviewers.
Yeah.
And they're fun and they're conversational. And I think you see what's happening on social media, and a lot of the traditional talk shows have not performed as well compared to some of the podcasters and some of the social media influencers that are out there. So I think they took a strategic look and were like, all right, what's our advantage?
Yeah.
Oh, it's interviewing, and it's the strength of our hosts.
Yeah.
How can we lean into that? It's longer form. It's spending time with really high quality guests that no one else can get for 10, 20, 30 minutes, an hour. But those long form interviews are great. Like you can't really get them everywhere.
And I think they don't disagree. They don't agree on a lot of things, right? There's even I think it's interesting because if it was purely political, it gets annoying after a while, right? It becomes left and right and all that. But because it's kind of like around business, and one of them has more of a left view, one has more of a right view, but it's not just around the politics of things. It's like, how does it affect business? Yeah. It's like policy and that kind of thing. So I think that they've done a really good job. I used to always say, I still won't listen. I still won't watch them in the evening. Who's that guy? I won't some of that consumer stock picking stuff. I'd stay away from.
Kramer?
Yeah, I can't too much. But so anyway, so I have it on in the morning just to kind of hear what everyone else is hearing, right? And Alex Karp was on, so I actually listened to it live, and I was like, that was a great interview.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Then 5 minutes later, it's all over X, it's all over everything blowing up. But I think I showed it to Barry, our CTO, and he was like, his reaction was very duh. We've been talking about this for 2 years. He's like, why is this super surprise thing when we've all known this? This is not a new dynamic, right? Yeah. And why is it that he gets up there? And I think I told you one thing that I can't stand about what Alex Karp does is he takes commonly known words in technology and somehow makes them his own. All of a sudden he owns ontology.
Ontology.
Yeah. It's was building ontology in OWL 20 years ago.
Create it brand new.
No, it's great.
Taking words out of the dictionary and associating them with your company is pretty.
It's his product name.
It's pretty impressive.
It's wild, right? But just to recap what Alex said, right? He said, look, the large language models, the foundation models, are basically stealing all your data. Look at what happened with Figma, which, if you don't know, the CMO for Anthropic was on the board of Figma, resigned 3 days before Claude design was released. And so he was basically making the point that if you're training them on your data.
Well, the other thing with Figma too to point out is the CMO was on the board, but they also had a deep partnership with Anthropic and were helping them train their models.
Right.
So they, the agreement was that Anthropic is going to be how Figma develops their AI, generative AI design tools.
Right.
And instead they ended up competing with them.
Right. Exactly. And so I think that was kind of one of the points he made. And this idea of sovereign AI, which has been talked about now for a long time, and as well as like the open source models, right? Which, it's interesting because, most of what I know about technology, I learned during the internet days, right? So it's everything I look at is packets. How I think about it, everything is routing packets. That's just how I think about things. And so I think it was really interesting when he was talking about open source, because I remember the first router I made from scratch was with Linux. I took a machine, put 2 network interface cards in them, ran a kernel of Linux to make my own router, because you couldn't just like go out and buy a router on the internet, right? And I remember a lot of the infrastructure as we grew, we had a problem, which was we couldn't find people that knew Linux. So we ended up moving over to Cisco's systems because there were Cisco engineers that knew Cisco's interface. We moved our web servers from Apache to Microsoft ISS because we could find a bunch of Microsoft engineers.
Yeah.
And so it became less about the pride of like, hey, this technology is better. It became, as I scale, I need to have people that know what they're doing. What's interesting is that's where we came from in the internet days. And then corporate America all of a sudden thought Microsoft invented the internet. Like, that's how that world went, right? What's interesting is, of course, people are going to use Anthropic and OpenAI models and build stuff on them. But now we're talking about going the reverse, right? Now we need to move to open source, and it's easier said than done. And another podcast that I used to love, All In Podcast, which I kind of hate them now because they're just annoying. They had a little segment on the Alex Karp rant, right? And I think the host there said something like, hey, if you're a YC company and you're building your tech on top of these models, like you're done. Like you don't have a path forward, which may or may not be true, right? Which may or may not be true. But I think it's interesting how it sent this shockwave around, what's happening with our data? And I think it's fascinating that it's like, you didn't know. It's like the early adopters of Facebook. Remember, if you're not paying for the service, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah.
People are still on Facebook. It still exists, right? So the question will be is like, how many companies really will say, let's go do open source? Not trivial to do an open source model and train it yourself and
choose your own weights.
Right. Choose your own weights. Yeah. And I guess we have to hire someone that knows what they're doing with that.
Yep.
And I think your CIO at a construction company has no clue. They're a Microsoft shop. They're happy with Copilot.
And what's interesting about, Karp's segment on CNBC, just to be clear, was a big promotion for what they're selling and what they're doing and how they're working with clients as a consultant, which is, hey, we're going to do all that for you. If you want to be sovereign over your own data set, which his point is like, that's where the value in your enterprise resides. Yeah. And I think a lot of people listening probably would also agree that's where, your enterprise value resides.
Yeah. So, like I have all these like weird observational things, right? Because I'm pretty much just beyond AI build, right? So my wife's like, 4th of July, we need to have apple pie because that's the thing. I'm like, okay. So I go to the grocery store and I get a pre-baked apple pie. And she calls me and is like, hey, like, don't buy one. You need to get the ingredients. I'm going to make one. And so I'd already bought the pre-made pie. So I go back into the store and I get like the crust and the apples and all the stuff, right? I go back to the counter and say, hey, can you exchange it? And so they credited me for the pre-made pie, and then I had to buy all the ingredients. And I owed them $10. So I just like looked at it and said, I could have bought a pie that was already made, which I don't know where the ingredients come from, but it's probably a pretty good pie. But I returned that for less money And then I bought all the ingredients to make a homemade pie, which was more money, $10 more.
Mm-hmm.
And then my wife has to go make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm unclear whether the outcome will be consistent with the bought pie. Right?
So it's more work, it's more expensive.
And a lot of unknowns.
You do get the other ingredients for, for future pies. That's something.
No, it was like just for this pie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just for this pie.
Okay. All right.
So I paid $10 more.
Yeah.
Had to wait on it. There's also like variability. I don't know. Her pie was a little well done.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Not the best cooking job.
Right. So I have to do more work. I have to put the ingredients together, and I have to hope that the outcome is as good as the bought pie.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me like using Anthropic versus an open source model.
I like the analogy. Okay.
So you can bake your own pie. I'm not sure why you would.
And Karp's saying, I'm going to bake you a good pie.
Yeah.
He's basically like, hey, you can't do that on your own.
Yeah.
You're not going to bake a good pie. Too much variability. So let me handle that for you.
Mm-hmm. And
I might be maybe still more expensive, or I'm not going to be the cheapest option in town, but I'm going to make you a great pie that you effectively helped bake yourself.
Right.
And you're in control of the exact ingredients that went into it.
Right. It's your unique pie.
Yeah.
Right. You get to use organic cinnamon or organic apples, and you get to know where everything comes from, and you get to know how it's all being used and how it all bakes together, and you get to decide how under or overcooked you want to bake it. Right. But that's just not going to be for everyone. Yeah, my wife wants to bake a pie. I was kind of happy. I'm happy with one of those Hostess brand hot pies. McDonald's pie is pretty good too. Right? So they have a great apple. So I think this idea that there's right or wrong, which was what he was. Let's be clear, he's trying to get his stock price up by talking his book. And I think the reality is people have to make these decisions. The interesting thing is the next day I was having breakfast with the ENR 500 CEO and asked him about it. And he said it was like a bit like, word got out within the company. He got some emails and some text messages. Some of his board members said, hey, did you see this interview? What are we doing? And he's like, man, I had to spend like an hour explaining to people like what was going on and what we were doing. And he's like, the good news is like we aren't doing any wild things. We are working with them. We're not running it across our enterprise. But the downstream effect of that is I had a lot of people call me about it as well. And the funny thing is for the AEC industry, most of them are running Microsoft shops and most of them are running Copilot. They're not doing a lot more than that on their own. Most of them are not running Claude on their own or Chat. It's more like individual people have it. And many of them have just banned it altogether. But what it shifted their thinking to was the incumbent software companies and the startups they're working with. Like, what are they doing with our data?
Yeah.
Right? How's Procore came out with their new owners package. And in the press release, it says, trained on millions of projects to your benefit. And it's like, where did those millions of projects come from, Procore? Right? And I think that's what really everyone's just started hit pause and say, what are all these people doing with our data?
Yeah.
What is that startup doing with our data? I mean, I think we've talked about it. There's like 100 estimating startups out there. There's no way any of them are going to survive. And most of the tech is like, nah, it's okay. But what are they doing with all your data? Are they really just going to stay and be an estimating software company? Or are they going to become their own contractor? What are they going to do with all that data? Because it's not rational that this much money has gone into these estimating software. I mean, there's a lot of money that's gone into them. And unclear, right? And so a lot of the CEOs ask me, like, I guess we should be asking these startups that we're working with what they're doing with this, what they're doing with our data, because maybe that's the scarier thing for them. But the other thing that I thought was interesting with the CEOs I talked to was how prevalent cyber attacks are in our industry. I had no idea. Several of them said, we're struggling with even understanding AI because we just got ransomware last year. And so we've really just tightened everything down.
Yeah.
And I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't know our industry was, I know lots of industries are more susceptible to hacks and all, but apparently And then I talked to one of our mutual friends, and he's like, yes, I know several subcontractors that have been put out of business because of cyber attacks. They got ransomware attacks.
Crazy.
Yeah. And I think there is like, okay, well, if we can't even control that, how are we going to do anything with AI?
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're connected.
Yeah.
But I think that's just a general feeling of, cognitive load. Like I'm too worried about getting hacked to even think about upside.
Yeah. So to recap a little bit of the Karp dialogue and how you're thinking about building your own sovereign suite of tools, or what objectively what you think the best path is that these enterprises should take if they're considering, if they're listening to the Karp interview and they're saying, okay, what are we doing and what should we do?
Yeah.
Is your recommendation that they index more to the sovereign side and explore open source, or is your recommendation that they should be in the phase where they're still just accruing the benefits of AI, and they should trust that the clauses that the model company that they're working with, or whatever service provider sits in the middle, that there is some privacy on the data side, or should they not care at all? Like, should they just?
I think there's a couple of things to think about, and I just tend to get back in my time machine to the 90s. So Linux was very rogue. I remember meeting Linus, right, Torvalds. It was like that rogue.
It's a cool experience.
Yeah, I mean, at the time it was just another dude. We're at these internet.
He's very, very famous now, but at the time, I could imagine.
At the time, we're all just we're at internet,
geek.
we're at Networld Interop, and we have these little card tables with the skirt around them and a handwritten, our company name on them. We're all just hanging out there. That's how I met Jeremy Allaire, Cold Fusion, right? He's big deal now with Circle or whatever. And so, we all used to hang out and just doing stuff, right? And so I think what happened is that Linux went from this open source rogue thing to then you had companies like Red Hat show up. And Red Hat said, look, we have the open source Linux kernel. We've put in the security measures. We've created our own kernel. And we're not going to sell it to you because you can't do that when you're open source. I think later on they found some way around it to charge for software. But they basically said, here's the open source software, and we'll do services on it for free. So corporates had an option now. I think Red Hat's owned by IBM now. But a friend of mine Red Hat got really big. And a friend of mine actually was running it for a while. They went public, and I think they ended up selling to IBM. But the idea was okay, here's a pre-made open source software, and we're going to give it to you for free. But you're a big company. You can't recruit and hire the right people. You don't know how to support it. It's a whole different language, so to speak. If you're a Microsoft stack, how do you drop open source?
100%. Yep.
So they basically said software's free, but we charge for services. So I think that's where we end up. And that's all Palantir is doing, is saying you should have your own open source model, which means you can't do it yourself. And we're partnered with NVIDIA.
Yep.
And we'll come in and deploy, and we'll do it for you. And I think that's going to be an option on them. I mean, we're doing it for some of our clients right now. We're starting to architect out and they don't know how to manage this and deal with it. They're worried about cyber attacks. They're worried about everything else. Yeah. So I think it'll be, we're doing some stuff. We're not that worried. We're just going to work with Anthropic. Hey, KP, can you help us run our own open source model and manage it for us? Yeah, sure. We've had people ask about on-prem. We actually have a project right now for facilities management that building an on-prem open source device.
What's the appeal to that for that client to do on-prem?
Building systems. They don't want their building systems connected to the broad internet.
Yeah. Just cloud.
They don't want it on cloud in general, right?
Yeah.
They want it local. And also there's a connectivity challenge that they have with these systems. So, so I think the answer is some people, will just stay the course and keep doing what they're doing if they're not worried. Some people, I think you might even see some on-prem stuff. I met a company the other day that I thought was fascinating. They said, how often is your prompt or query or whatever you want to call it to an LLM, how often is it really time sensitive? And if it's an MCP server, why does it have to happen in real time? And what they're doing is they're because of power is cheaper at the middle of the night.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So they're like caching the prompts,
offloading them
and offloading in the middle of the
cheaper.
night when it's cheaper. And so when you come back in the morning, you have all the answers.
There's like inference. It's like inference hedging in a way.
Yeah. I was like, that's really cool. Right? Like,
yeah. But sometimes it would be, hey, I need an immediate answer.
Right.
Other times it's not as important to get the prompt response back immediately.
Because if you're not paying for tokens, you're paying for power, which is kind of their point. Is like, even if you go to open source models, it's not free. You still have to power. You have to buy the hardware, possibly, and run the model and run the compute. So, but the good news is everybody's thinking about this stuff. That's why when Karp gets on TV and stuff, it's like, hey, everyone's.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, I think there's like a couple threads here. I think it's good to have the conversation. I think it's like at the very least, he brought awareness to the choice, which, like, back to your Facebook analogy, you are the product if you're not paying for it. He brought awareness to saying, like, hey, we're all using the frontier models because they've been the best. They've been best in class. They're faster. Open source models are behind frontier models. Like, there's a reason to use the frontier models. And, we're all experiencing the AI adoption curve in real time. Like, we're all wanting to use the best in class model. Now, for specific things and, related to your sensitive data, we may not need to use the best in class model. And by the way, the open source models are not nearly as far behind as they used to be. We're catching up.
Yeah.
And so to me, the great thing about his interview was, like, he brought attention to the architectural question that people should be asking.
Yep.
And it's just, they need to know.
Yeah.
They need to know they have the choice, and they need to think through what the right architecture is for their company.
So the interesting thing from all this is I was talking to a construction company that's in the Bay Area, and they said they are getting hit up like every day by another YC company estimating this, something, whatever it is. And I was like, are you meeting with them? Like, no, we're not meeting with them. And I was like, but what if they have something interesting? And the person had a very, like, just cogent response. He said, our industry is about trust, relationships, and reputation. These children have none of that. They have no construction experience. They don't have relationships. If they take our data and screw it up or mess up, there's no attachment to the industry.
Yeah.
And they're going to move on and go do their next thing, right? Whatever the next thing is. And I thought it was, like, really interesting, especially for a contractor, right? A contractor thinks about their subcontractor, right? People don't realize, a lot of people's like, oh, they just want to beat up their subcontractors. It's actually no. They want someone they can trust, that has mission alignment and has a reputation and cares about their reputation, right? If a project goes wrong, it's not going to be about the lawyers and all of that. It's going to be like, no, we need to make it right because our reputation matters. And I thought that was just such an interesting, like, cogent point of view around how you think about evaluating technology. It's like, if this company goes out of business, what does this founder or CEO have to lose? If my data gets leaked, what does this founder have to lose? And if it's nothing, then, like, why are we going to do business with them? Which I thought was a very, in many ways, our friends in construction are like, they may talk simple. Yeah. But in many ways, they're brilliant. Yeah. Right. Just the experience of it all. Like, I'm not going to work with a drywall sub that just shows up out of the blue. Yeah. Like, I would never hire a 20-year-old drywall sub that has never done a job in their career. Like, and that's almost, like, less important than me putting my corporate systems on a platform. So I thought it was a very simple view of the world, in a world where everyone's, like, trying to, like, get an edge. Oh, let's have an innovation. Like, we need to get an edge. Like, no, fine. We're just fine. Yeah.
Actually, like, it's going to be interesting to see it related to the trust factor. If you're buying any sort of AI application product, how do the 20-year-old startups build trust with enterprises. And I think this gets to a little bit of what Karp was alluding to. It's like they're all, knowing that most startups are using the frontier models.
Mm-hmm.
They're just a pass through, they're a gateway to spinning tokens on those
Mm-hmm.
models. Well, those models are training the data that's being fed to them. In fact, like I think one nuanced thing to point out about that interview and the timing of it. So if you're using Claude Fable,
Mm-hmm.
which has been all over the news, the U.S. government banned it. It's now back open. Security issues, right? Safety issues were the reason they shut it down. Fable had different terms and conditions,
Mm-hmm.
which was that they're going to train on your data. They have access to your data. Previously, Anthropic, if you use Claude models,
yeah,
they did not have that clause in there where it's saying, hey, we don't, like, they're basically said, hey, we're keeping your data, private, and who knows what that actually means. But
right.
they did have a clause that said, hey, we are not going to steal your data. But they changed that. And so related to the startups and how they build trust, I think this is an interesting thread, because what is the right architecture even for them? Should they be using, if they're providing an AI application that's spending tokens with the models, should they also offer an open source
Mm-hmm.
option? Is that a trust building exercise?
Yeah.
Does it even matter? Like if you don't control everything in the stack,
yeah.
Does the owner, the decision maker, the purchaser of the product, do they even care if they can't control and see everything?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a way for them to re-architect their product experience and build trust?
No, I think there's a couple of things there. I mean, I think, what does it mean? Like, your data is yours and we're not taking your data. And are we training on your data? We don't even know what that means, right? Technically, what does that mean? Or am I training or not training on your data? And it comes back to, I was talking to someone the other day about NDAs, right? NDAs protect you from disclosing information that you disclose. It does not protect you from someone stealing your idea.
Mm.
You can go into a company, have an NDA, and say, oh, wow, that's a really interesting business you're in. And let's say you don't do a deal. You go, wow, it's a really cool business. There's nothing that keeps you. You're not in violation of any NDA to borrow someone's idea. Now, if you take their customer list and start calling their customers, totally different thing, right? But much like you can't reproduce a book and sell it as your own, you're allowed to read a book, train on it, and then go start giving talks, and write blogs, and do all the other things, right? You're allowed to do that. I mean, how many people have written blogs about every book out there, right? I mean, plenty of people do. And so I think part of it is just not knowing. But then ultimately, it's like, does it matter, right? Does it matter? Because much like the internet doesn't function with lots of people being on it. If you're on the internet alone, it's not that helpful.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it's going to be like understanding, like, what am I giving away and what shouldn't I give away?
And it's such, I mean, you've had to make these choices with Foundation Zero, which is your platform. I know you have an AI specific, a project specific AI stack that tries to solve some of these data privacy issues on, project by project. So just talk about you're actively making these choices. Like, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't say like we had some great vision around it. We understand, just being from industry, the sensitivity of sharing information, right? Not letter of the law type of thing, but let's talk about feelings, right? When BIM first came on, architects would say, hey, we'll share the BIM with you, the data. You need to sign this waiver that we aren't, so there's always been sensitivity. I don't know that architects were worried that someone was going to cut and paste a BIM and build the building, right? Like, I'm going to reproduce it and build a copycat of your building.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more liability based. So I think when we thought about, like, this industry is all about projects, everything is about projects. Corporate overhead is funded by projects. That if you could make projects more successful. And our definition of project success is not that the owner wins and the contractor loses. It's that everybody has a great experience and everybody makes their fair share of money.
Yeah.
And you reduce waste out of a project system. That's the goal, right? So the way we thought about architecting is, if I'm going to actively contribute data to a project, and that project is going to learn from that data using Foundation Zero, I need to tell you like what it's doing. You need to see an audit trail. You need to understand everything that's happening with it and how it's being touched. And then the next piece of data, and you need to opt into it. It's not reading everything. You have to either upload it or email it, or like you have to actively say, I am actively sharing this, which I think was both a business and technical decision. Because I also believe, for years we've talked about we need better standardized workflows and processes in construction. And I was like, yeah, that was before AI. With AI, it should be the creative unlock. No project should be the same. Every method can be, like, you don't need the standardization, kind of like we talked about the McDonald's hamburger, right? It's like, it's a very high quality hamburger. Doesn't mean it tastes good. I was talking to an architecture firm the other day that we're doing a proof of concept with. And I was like, maybe you guys can design nicer buildings now, or maybe less ugly buildings. Because what happens is you do this creative thing, and then the client says like, how much is that going to cost? And you have no idea. You can't. And the reality is, great design shouldn't cost more. It doesn't have to cost more. It's the complexities of building it that end up. So if we can use AI and robotics to reduce the complexities of building something unique, I think that's where the future is. Like Monumental Labs, we think about some of the companies we've invested in, even, right?
Yep.
They're not trying to build houses like factories. They're trying to do unique things, right? So I think we just had an approach that, hey, we're from the industry. This is how it works. The other thing is, like, how I would argue that if you have a model that's training on everything you do, it might start to think that a hotel is a hospital and a hospital is a hotel based on how it's laid out. So I think project context, if we believe that every project is unique and the players are unique, and it's more like producing a movie than a factory, then context and relationships and understanding should reside at a project level.
Very interesting. So let's talk about Alex Karp. Why you love him? We've talked about the interview, but what's the crush on Alex Karp?
I think he's clearly neurodivergent. I may have some of those same issues, right? It's kind of funny, like, how often the people around me that love me have to like go tell other people. Like, it's not personal. Like, he cut you off short and walked out of the room. Like, it wasn't personal, right? He's not making it. He's like, he just moved on to the next thing. So I think, like, seeing someone that's, I think he's maybe a little bit further divergent than I am, but that he could be successful, and then he gets to say what he wants to say. And I think I have a good filter for, like, I don't care about the theatrics, but he's rarely wrong.
Absolutely.
I think he's rarely wrong.
There's always something, if it was purely for entertainment and just his theatrics, I think it's a good point. He would not have the stature that he does, and people would not be as tuned in. But he always is speaking some sort of new truth.
Mm-hmm.
And he's usually just making a point that's correct. It's truthful.
Yeah.
And that no one else is willing to say.
Yeah.
I think that's the key thing, is like, he's willing to say things out loud that might offend people. He might have business partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about specifically Dario and Sam in the interview, and he's like, look, I like hanging out with Dario.
Yeah.
Nothing against him. He's like, people are concerned about how he's building Anthropic. Same thing with Sam. I like Sam, but people are pissed.
Yeah.
And not every CEO is willing to go on TV and say that truthfully and emphatically.
And it's a public company. That's the other dynamic, right? I think a lot of people, a lot of CEOs, like, oh, we're a public company, I have to behave a certain way. I read this great article. I thought it was pretty interesting, because there's been the rise of the Indian CEO, whether it's Adobe, formerly Starbucks had one, and there's all these Indian CEOs. And like, they're like, why are they why are there so many Indian CEOs of public companies? And I was like, because they're not controversial. They do the work. They're okay, mostly immigrants, right? So not have had to adapt to a culture and society that's not their own. And running a public company, you kind of have to be vanilla. You can't be wild. You can't have strong opinions. You have to make everyone happy. And I think a lot of immigrants that come to this country, I grew up in the keep your head down and fit in, assimilate, type of thing. If someone says, "Oh, you're Indian, I'm part Cherokee," you just laugh along with them. Don't get offended, And so I think there is some of that being a public company CEO, you have to go along with stuff. You don't get to say what's actually on your mind, which is miserable. So I think that's what I also think is fascinating is he's running a public company. Everything he says can be construed as guidance, and there's a lawyer in the wings telling you can't say that. And so I think that's really what's interesting. I think it's the same thing people like to debate about, Elon Musk. And it's if you take away all the nonsense, let's just talk about the engineer. Let's just talk about making an impact. And, but I think that's why I think part of what I like about it is I feel like when I hear him talk, I filter out all that noise and I actually listen to what he's saying. And I don't know that everyone has that ability to filter it out. They just get too caught up in the noise. So sometimes I feel like maybe he's speaking directly to me.
That's cool. It's a gifted communicator that can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is he is entertaining.
No, right.
He is very entertaining in the way that he tells stories and speaks. He has so much energy. It's hard not to, tune in when he's on a TV. Yeah. They have in the background of
people have him on our podcast.
Yeah, it'd be great. Should be an easy call.
Easy call.
I do have to cut this interview short. Maybe the shortest podcast we've recorded in a while. But I'm a busy guy in San Francisco. I got meetings.
I hear.
So
doing deals,
important stuff.
Doing deals.
So we'll do. I imagine the next couple weeks we'll do it live, and we'll actually do the event later this month, and we'll share details with anyone who's local that wants to come by.
If you're in Bay Area or want to fly in, I know we have our. I don't know when we're doing it. I think we have our hackathon on the 21st.
Okay.
In the Bay Area, but I don't know when we're doing our recording. But in front of a live studio audience,
the week after.
The week after.
Maybe we'll do a bridge version of the hackathon.
Yeah, that'll be cool. All right, man.
Good stuff. All right.